What's going on, guys? Today I wanted to talk about something that I see it being discussed a lot online, in archery clubs, just between friends. I hear it a lot, and that's, should I hunt or should you hunt with a back tension style release or a hinge style release? Um, a lot of people say that you shouldn't. A lot of people don't think it's a problem and do it. I mean, you can see pro shooters like Levi Morgan, Chris B. They're out hunting with hinge style releases, and they're doing it with a good amount of success. So the short answer to this question, whether or not you should hunt with a back tension or a hinge style release, is yeah, you definitely can, as long as you practice a lot with it. However, that answer is kind of the same for anything. You should really only be bow hunting or hunting in general if you're practicing a lot with your equipment. So that's my quick take on it, and I'm going to explain to you why. Alright, so the first handheld back tension style release that I ever hunted with was the Nock-On Silverback. This thing helped me out tremendously in my archery career in helping me correct form issues and become much more consistent in my shot process. So for many years, probably about 10 years, I shot just a regular wrist strap style release from when I first started getting into archery until about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And I shot well. I mean, I shot decent. I didn't shoot bad, but I had recurring target panic issues, and I never felt totally comfortable. I felt as though there was more that I could be doing with the potential that I had as an archer. I found it very difficult to tap into that. That's when I decided to switch over to a silverback and give it a shot, and it turned out to be the best thing I ever did in my archery career, and I tell that to everybody, and I recommend everyone get a silverback, and I'm going to tell you why. So, real quick, real simple, the way that a silverback works is there's this thumb peg here, same as you'll see on a regular thumb style release. And all that thumb peg is a safety. So when you're drawing, you hold down on that safety. You come to full draw. Once you get to full draw, you have an internal spring inside of this release that you can change and you can set to just a few pounds over the holding weight of your bow. So say the holding weight on your bow is 15 pounds. You can set this release to 18 pounds. You get to full draw, and now you have to apply an additional 3 pounds of straight back pressure to make the release fire. There's no movement in the hand, there's nothing. It's just straight back pressure. And this release taught me the importance of using back tension when you fire a bow, and it cleaned up so many different form issues that I had, and it made me a significantly better shot, better archer, made me way more consistent. And when I first started using that release, I had a lot of people telling me, you know what, you really probably shouldn't shoot with a release like that when you're hunting, something's going to go wrong. And I took all of those opinions and I compared myself shooting with this release versus before. And my shooting was just so exponentially better that I decided to take the risk and go for it, and I'm really glad that I did. This past season, I hunted the whole season with nothing but the silverback. And I'll show some clips here of the success that I've had. So, the one thing I'd like to point out about the clips that you just saw is that every shot that I made on a whitetail, this is a high pressure situation. Some of these shots are long shots, deer that are in the middle of walking away from me. One of them is the biggest buck that I've ever shot. So, super high stress, high anxiety inducing situations. And what I've found in situations like that in the past, I will tend to forget the basics of what I need to do to shoot well. And what I love about this style of release is it keeps me true to what I know that I have to do. And I also feel as though, in terms of firing the release, there's not as much I can do. It's a very simple process of just getting to full draw and pushing my elbow to touch something behind me, straight back. And as long as I do that and I keep my grip straight, that arrow should fly true just the same as I am at home. I'm not going to be able to punch a trigger. I'm not going to be able to have a deer walking off and just wanting to, ram that trigger to get that arrow down range as fast as possible. I'm going to need to slow everything down, go through my shot sequence, and make a good shot. And since I switched to the style of release in hunting situations, I've made some of the hardest and longest shots that I've ever made on whitetails. So it's definitely seemed to have helped me a lot in that regard. So I understand why people are a bit hesitant to switch over to a release like this to hunt, but I will say that with an adequate amount of practice, I do believe that it's extraordinarily beneficial, especially in really high stress situations such as hunting. So, the other style of release that we are talking about in this video is a hinge style release. This is the UltraView The Hinge. I just got this thing recently, actually. I only picked this thing up around maybe 2 months ago, and I took to it like a duck to water. I started shooting very well with this release, very, very fast, but I have to attribute that to exclusively shooting the silverback for about a year and a half, if not more. The process is still very, very similar. So the way you're shooting a release like this, a hinge style release, is when you draw the bow back, you have it angled down. Also, I apologize for such a small length of D-loop material. It's all that I have. But you draw it angled down, and once you get to full draw, all you're doing is releasing, or not releasing, but relaxing your hand. And that's going to cause a natural flow and a natural rotation that's eventually going to get you. I'm not sure if you could hear it, but in this release I have a clicker to tell me exactly where I am at in the shot sequence. So once I get there, all I do is just pull straight back, the same as the silverback. And because of that, it allowed me, I essentially fire it the same exact way. So I was able to take to it very well, but I felt as though this release was a bit crisper than the silverback. That's just for me. Someone else might feel different, but for me, I felt as though I was able to make my shots go off a little bit easier with this, and that's why I like it so much. But yeah, so you get to full draw, relax your hand, get into that click, and just pull. So, while it is very different, you can see it does have this hinging motion, hence being called a hinge. There are definitely potential issues that I could see while hunting with a release like this. Now, I have not hunted with this release before, so I don't have any first-hand experience, but what I can tell you is that I'm leaving for an antelope hunt in about 24 hours out in Wyoming. This is going to be in my pack. When I come back home from that trip on August 30th, I plan on leaving for Colorado for an elk hunt. This is going to be in my pack, and I plan on having this in my pack for all of whitetail season. Personally, I have a lot of faith in this release. I shoot it every day. I shoot a lot of arrows every day. I feel extremely comfortable with this release right now. Issues that I could potentially see arising between this, probably more so with this release, considering the silverback has that safety, it makes it a little bit more, eases the nerves, I think, a little bit more. Like, it's not going to fire as long as you have that safety on. But for this release, high stress situation, I can see, potentially drawing at a bit more of an angle, and instead of coming back and you're in your normal anchoring position, your hand's a little bit in a contorted spot, maybe being up in a tree, or kneeling, crouching on the ground, stalking, and that release maybe firing a bit early or anything like that. But I go back to something I said, I believe I said it earlier in the video. I think that hinge release, back to hinge release, you can hunt with these styles of releases as long as you are very, very comfortable with it. And I feel as though anyone who has talked with you about this before, there's a good chance that you've heard people say that. As long as you're like super comfortable, super confident in a hinge release or your back tension, you can hunt with it. And that is obviously true. But then the way that I perceive that is, I believe that you should be extremely confident in any release that you shoot, in any bow that you shoot, in any arrow combination that you shoot, in any broadhead that you shoot. Hunting is extremely difficult, and whatever you decide to use for your gear, any type of gear, even if it's boots, your backpack, the different cameras that you use, whatever it is, you need to be extremely proficient in what you use, and it's no different here. So the way that I look at it is, you need to be extremely proficient in everything that you use. You need to be the same with this. So the way that I look at it, there's really no extra steps in terms of preparing for hunting with a hinge or a back tension. You have to do the same thing with any style of release. You have to be incredibly proficient with it to ensure a clean, ethical harvest of whatever it is that you're going after. So, overall, the last about 2 years, I've shot almost nothing except these 2 releases. I've spent a full whitetail season hunting with the silverback, as well as a turkey season. And I have not hunted with this release yet, but I plan on spending a full season doing so this year. And I think what it all boils down to is your comfort level in whatever it is that you're using, and a lot of practice. You can practice a lot with a certain type of equipment, and maybe you never get comfortable with it. And if that's the case, it doesn't matter how much you practice with it. If you're not comfortable, you're not comfortable. Everyone has to find out what works best for them. For me, this style of release has done wonders for my shooting. It's made me improve in every single category as a hunter, as an archer, as a competitor. I love it. So that's my take on whether or not you should hunt with a back tension or a hinge style release. It all comes down to practice and your comfort level. If you practice a lot with it and you're able to become comfortable with whatever release it is that you decide to shoot, then there is no reason why you should not be able to hunt with this style of release. That's my take. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I really appreciate it. If you have anything you want to say, any questions, any ideas on how to improve the channel, improve the videos, please comment them down below. I'll be sure to get back to you as soon as I can. Please follow me on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook. It's all the same, Archery Athlete. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.